Welcome back to the Whole Nine Yards podcast. Drew Pian alongside here, Brandon Kokorian. Friday at noon. Since our last episode, probably the biggest thing that's happened is Dodgers won the World Series. Initial reactions?
Yeah, it was a game that had a lot of controversy involved in it, especially in the sixth inning, which we're about to get into. But first off, I just want to say to all the people who are congratulating Clayton Kershaw on getting a ring, and they're so happy for him. I'm not really sure why they're so happy for him. I mean, at least people I know. I don't know anyone that's a Dodgers fan or a Clayton Kershaw fan, so I'm really not sure why they're so happy for him. I know it's something that you don't like.
I'm not happy. I'm just not happy. I just don't like the Dodgers. I don't like Kershaw. I don't really like Betts. I don't know how you could be happy to see Kershaw get a ring after how long he's choked. I guess if him not choking makes you happy, even though he didn't. It's not like he played the best. It's not like he played prime vintage Kershaw, but
he was pretty good in the two games that he started.
He was good, but he wasn't prime 1.5, 1.4 shutdown. Yeah, I don't know. Personally, I just wasn't that happy to see the Dodgers win. I just don't think they're a very likable team unless you're actually a fan of the team.
Yeah, I don't really care for the Dodgers. I wish. I don't know who I wanted to win the series because I'm a Yankee fan. Obviously, the Rays beat the Yankees, but I wasn't happy to see the Dodgers win. That's for sure.
Yeah, if I was a Yankees fan, I guess I'd just hope that both teams lose, even though that's not actually possible. Anyways, though, I guess the most controversial decision, at least in Game 6, was Kevin Cash. He pulled Blake Snell in the sixth inning after he was in the middle of throwing a gem.
Yeah, Snell was 5 1/3 in. He only allowed 2 hits. He had 9 strikeouts, and I've heard from other people that Austin Barnes, the 9th hitter for the Dodgers, he got a single with 1 out in the 5th, which then they pulled Snell after, because he was going to face the top of the order. But I've heard that they were going to pull him no matter what. Even if he got Barnes out, they're still going to pull him. Because he was going to have to face the lineup for a third time, which is something that the Rays don't do. They don't like their pitchers facing a lineup for the third time. But I understand that in the regular season, but they usually pull Snell out in the fifth or the sixth inning in the regular season to save him. So if you were saving him in the regular season, why would you take him out in an elimination game? I just don't understand that.
It feels like a very baseball thing, super analytic, number-based thing. No human element into it. I don't understand it at all. I don't know why. It's Game 6 of the World Series. You're not saving him for anything. You're not really saving him for Game 7. You're probably gonna let him go all out here. He's probably not gonna play Game 7, or if they would have won that. I just think it was a stupid decision. They asked Cash after the game if he regretted pulling Snell out, and he said, "I regret the decision because it didn't work out, but, I feel like the thought process was right. If we had to do it over again, I would have the utmost confidence in Nick Anderson to get through that inning." To me, I don't understand that at all. You leave Snell in for, at least until he proves he has to be taken out, probably, or if he can make it over 100 pitches, 2 hits still, then you take him out after that once he starts to slow down. But I don't understand the whole 2 times through the order thing. I guess I haven't been told about the numbers behind it, but in this case, it definitely didn't make sense and it didn't work out. So
yeah, that's what they've been doing all season long. But there's multiple things that that don't justify taking him out. See, one, you should have just kept him in no matter what. And even if you want to say he was facing the top of the order, the top of the order in that game, the first 3 hitters were over 6 with 6 strikeouts for Snell. So it's not like they'd been getting hits off him or tough at bats. They had 6 strikeouts. So I'm not sure what the thought process was there, in the middle of the game while you're watching it. Obviously, they had this planned out from the beginning of the game. Before the game started, they were going to take him out when he faced the lineup the third time. But I think while you're watching it, I just don't see how Cash doesn't override the front office there and just keep him in. No, if you know baseball, you should have kept him in. Watching it, I think I went straight to Twitter and everyone was no one could believe that they took him out. And you also brought in a guy who he had a .55 ERA in the regular season, but in the postseason he'd given up he had 6 straight appearances with giving up a run before coming into Game 6. And obviously, he gave up a run. One went to Snell, but then he also gave up one of his own in that inning, which that turned out to be, the game winner. Because the Rays, I think like once you take Snell out, I think the offense, the Rays' offense isn't good to begin with. They only had Rosarena, who was doing anything, honestly. And once you give up those 2 runs, like there was just no way they were going to score. And then, Mookie hits a homer in the 9th just to seal the deal, but I think it was probably one of the worst decisions in World Series history. I mean, probably of all time, I would say. I can't really think. I mean, maybe there's something from like the 40s, 50s I can't think of, but I would say in the last 20, 30, 40 years, I would say that's probably one of the worst decisions ever made.
Thoughts on Corey Seager MVP? Any issues or?
I have no issues with that. People said it should have been Betts. I don't really understand that.
No,
he was not good. He was good. Like he was good, but he wasn't like. He wasn't.
I mean, he wasn't even
good.
like good. Like
I mean, he make the defensive plays, but like offensively, he didn't do much.
I mean,
Seager was way better.
I don't have the stats right in front of me, but I know for a fact it's nothing close to his typical MVP or typical regular season numbers.
And he's never been a postseason player.
No, that's why. I mean, that might be a reason why the Red Sox wanted to not sign him to a lot of money. I mean, I'm sure the biggest reason was it's a lot of money, but I mean, that's one of the reasons I never really liked him as a player when he played on the Red Sox. I mean, I wasn't a Red Sox fan, but I lived in like the Boston area, so it was like a pretty popular thing. He never was a big performer in the playoffs. He had only, until this year, he had only 1 home run in the postseason. That was against Clayton Kershaw. So it's like
in a game that was over. That game was over when he hit that.
And so I don't count it. It doesn't count. He hit it like 200 like in the postseason or something like that. That's not 100% number, but it was something like that. So.
And one thing for the Snell, Mookie hit 200 versus lefties this year, and he slugged I think 218. I think the number was. I mean, like if you slug 218 against a type of pitcher, I mean, like slugging is usually like 500, 600. It's like average. I think I think 600 is average. Like slugging 218. I mean, I don't think he even hit a homer against a lefty this year. So I mean, as soon as they took him out, he got a double. So.
Moving on, we're going to get into week 8 of the NFL. Just going to talk about the future games. First here, Pats-Bills, AFC East matchup. It's actually probably a must-win for the Patriots, and it's a big week for the Bills. They've lost their last 2, and the defense hasn't looked good. They cannot stop the run. Josh Allen is not returned to MVP form yet. Granted, it's been against arguably the 2 best teams in the AFC, the Chiefs and the Titans. I think this would be a very Bills game to lose. Somebody who's been watching the Bills at least twice every year, but more than that. They're just, they're prone to choke. Allen still has that idiot in him where I just still can't, not to be Colin Cowherd, but I can't unsee Josh Allen in the playoff game just like chucking the ball like when he was running. You remember that play?
Yeah.
That was like the worst thing I've ever seen. And, this year he's definitely played better, but he still misses throws. And he still is really dumb. And with that, like, potential on that Bills team, like, I wouldn't be surprised if the Pats won. They've played horribly. The Pats have played horribly. Their offense has been probably the worst in the league over the past 2 weeks. Scored, 12 against the Broncos and then 6 against the 49ers. Both of those defenses aren't, like, anything super special. Newton has looked horrible. Just as bad as, like, Brian Hoyer and, like, all these horrible backups. The receiving core is awful. We've already talked about that, though. The offensive line is a bit banged up. The Pats' defense definitely is not as good as last year. You've lost from the opt-outs. You've lost Van Noy to free agency. You lost Hightower to an opt-out. You lost Chung to an opt-out. So I don't know what to think about this game, but I definitely know if the Patriots want to stay in contention for the division and for potentially a wild card spot down the road, this is a must-win. The Bills, it isn't necessarily a must-win, but if you want to get back on the right track, you definitely want to win this game. If you lose 3 in a row, and one of those being to a 2-4 Patriots team, that's not a good look, especially because the Patriots are kind of like on the edge of just like going down for this year. And considering the Pats have been the greatest dynasty in all of sports, this is the Bills' time, and I think a lot of the NFL is just like really hoping the Bills win this game, because if they make the Pats go 2-5, I mean, the league's going to be cheering. So
Yeah, I think this is a must-win for the Patriots if they want to get the playoffs. I was looking at their stats. Julian Edelman is their leading receiver this year with 315 yards. I mean, if that's your leading receiver, you're just not going to go anywhere.
Out of curiosity, can you name how many receivers can you name on the Patriots?
I could probably name.
Go.
I can name Edelman, even though he just got injured today. I think he's out for this week.
He is.
So
yep.
N'Keal Harry, but isn't he injured also? Or is he?
He's just a bust.
Yeah,
he's horrible.
He's not good.
I'm done. I kind of had hope of going to this year, but I'm done. He's bad.
Yeah, he's done. I think
exactly.
I think I can.
That's
name
the point.
Two.
That's the point. I can name more. You got Gunnar Olszewski. I'm sure. Who was that? Jacoby Myers. There's this bird guy. I forget his first name. It's like hard to pronounce. Then there's Zuber. I think I forget his first. I think it's Isaiah, but whatever. It's stupid. The receiving core is horrible. That's basically all I wanted to make at that point.
Yeah. This is gonna be a tough game. I think, anyways, because it's a division game. Every division game is always a tough game, but I think the Pats are gonna struggle only because the Bills are the home team in this game, and the Bills have a pretty good defense, and they play a lot better at home. I don't know why, but they just do. The Patriots just can't move the ball anyways. And if Cam, he had 3 interceptions last week. He looked terrible last week against the Niners. That defense is good.
They should have pulled them earlier than they did.
Yeah, the defense is good, but they have so many injuries. It's just not even close to where it could be. And he struggled against them mightily. So I think he's going to struggle again. Unless he can get the run game going, which I think is their only option if they want to win.
No, yeah.
And the only way they could win is if their run game, they rush for 200 yards, and their defense gets at least 1 or 2 takeaways. That's just the only way.
Newton has to probably rush 15 times. Lots of read option. They're also going to have to get some ground game going with the actual running backs, so that's probably Damian Harris, Rex Burkhead. And you're going to eventually have to get Newton going through the air. You're going to have to get him set up with some screens, some easy short passes. You have to get Newton back to where he was week 2 against the Seahawks. Because week 2 against the Seahawks, he looked great. I don't know what happened. I guess the only thing I can look at and see is COVID. I don't know how that made him just become horrible. But, it needs to improve, and it needs to improve now for them to really have a chance.
Yeah, I think the COVID's been underrated for Cam. I think it really has affected him, because I remember when Westbrook got it in the NBA, he got it. He was one of the only NBA players really to have it, at least before the bubble started, and he just wasn't the same player. You could say what you want to say, but he was averaging 27, 8 and 7 in the regular season, and then he got COVID and he just was not the same player. So I think it does have a pretty big impact on athletes, especially if you're playing quarterback. And if you're a wide receiver or something like that, it may not affect you as much just because you don't have the ball every time. But especially what he has to do, because he has to run the ball a majority of the time, and obviously has to throw the ball. So I think it's had a bigger impact than I think most people are taking it as.
Moving on to the arguably game of the week, Steelers at Ravens.
This game is another divisional game, just like Pats Bills. I think whoever wins this game is most likely the division winner. I don't really see the Browns, or obviously the Bengals aren't going to win it, but I think whoever wins this game will win the division. That's why I think it's a huge game. It's in Baltimore, so obviously they have the home field advantage there. But the way the Steelers have been playing, their defense has just been so good this year, and the Ravens' offense, pretty underrated. Their offense has not been good this year. Lamar, I was never a big fan of Lamar coming out of college, even last year. I just never bought into him. And I think this year people are just figuring them out. I don't know if it's because they just have more game film or just because their offense just isn't working the same as it was last year, but their offense is definitely not the same. They're not moving the ball as they were last year. Even though they still may be scoring a lot of points or blowing people out, I think that's really just because of the defense. I think the defense is a really good defense. And I think that with the way Lamar's been playing, we're gonna get into this later, but I'm probably gonna go with the Steelers here. And then I think they're gonna win the division also.
Honestly, looking at the remaining schedules for both teams, whichever team does win this is definitely most likely win the division. just looking at the Steelers here, notable games really just include the Bills, the Colts, if you count that, and then the Browns. The Ravens have a slightly tougher schedule, if you really want to call it. The only games they really have is the Titans. But the Steelers have already played the Titans. Obviously, they're going to play each other again later this year. The Ravens do play the Patriots for whatever that's worth. We'll see. They don't play for another couple weeks, but maybe the Patriots pick it back up again, and that becomes a difficult game. I definitely think the Steelers have an easier schedule for the rest of the year. I'm still not sold on the Steelers. I think the Ravens are more likely to get further in the playoffs, although I'm definitely not a fan of Lamar either. He definitely deserved MVP last year, had a great statistical regular season. But again, it just comes down to the trust factor and his performance in the playoffs. I just don't really trust him. He's not super accurate. He misses targets sometimes.
I just don't trust Lamar either. His 2 playoff games, he's just not. His first one, I guess, is a little. You can make an excuse. His first playoff game is a rookie year. He came in halfway through the season, so he's kind of playing with house money there. But I think for last year, they were, I think, clearly the best team in the NFL last year, and they just. You can say what you want to say about the defense and not stopping Henry, but if the offense can just show any life in that game last year, they probably win that game. So I think with the way he's been playing this year, he needs to pick it up. Again, they're 5-1, so they're obviously going to make the playoffs. They're still one of the best teams in the AFC, but he needs to pick it up offensively because when it comes to the playoffs, I think they're really going to need him to make throws and make plays with his legs, or they're just not going to win again. So I think it's as easy as that.
I think my favorite thing about the Ravens, it's not even about the Ravens, but I remember watching Colin Cowherd before the football season started, and he does whatever certain segments, and he's talked about the Ravens, and he was like, this is the one team in a long, long time where I wouldn't be surprised if they went 16-0. And I just thought to myself, that's just so stupid.
Yeah.
Not only because teams just don't go 16-0, but because it's Lamar. I don't know. Why the Ravens? We've clearly seen he's wrong. They lost week 3 to the Chiefs. The offense just isn't elite. And if you have to win it in a shootout, I just don't see that happening.
I completely agree with that. Their defense has to win games for them.
Going over to Saints at Bears here, an underrated game. It's important for both teams, and it's important for the Saints because you want to stay in the division race against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is pretty unpredictable right now, but it's definitely a safe bet to say that they're going to win a lot of games this year, and if the Saints want to compete, they have to keep winning, and this is an important game. You definitely want to see how Breeze plays in Chicago. You want to see if he can throw downfield. You want to see if he can throw with some zip in a cold weather atmosphere. It's important for the Bears because, this is a legit team, and there's definitely people that are still skeptical about this team. I think the biggest reason is going to be the quarterback, Nick Foles / Mitchell Trubisky, but right now Nick Foles. I'm also one of those people that doesn't trust him, and because of that, they're not really a legitimate contender in my opinion. But if you can go out and you can ball out on this Saints defense and win this game, maybe in a shootout, then you're definitely going to get the attention of a lot of NFL experts. And I guess in the Bears locker room, that isn't really an important thing, but it's definitely important to prove to the league that you're a legitimate contender, prove to the Packers you're a legitimate team.
So I looked at the weather, like you were talking about earlier, and it's gonna be 43 degrees in Chicago. And as we know, Drew Brees, he's a dome guy, he's a warm weather guy. So it's gonna be cold. I don't know what the winds are gonna be like, but it's probably gonna be probably gonna feel 25 there. So they're gonna have to rely on Kamara a lot this game. They already rely on him 70% of their offenses, 80% of their offense is Kamara, but they're gonna have to rely on him even more because I just don't see Breeze really, being able to throw. One, he can't throw the ball anyways because his arm's shot, but in cold weather, I just don't see him performing as he normally would if he was in New Orleans. But one thing is that Michael Thomas, I don't know when he's coming back. He supposedly was at practice today, but he was supposed to come back 2 weeks ago, and then they had a bye last week, and then he was supposed to come back this week, but then I think 2 days ago they said he wasn't coming back. So I don't know what's going on. Supposedly he's injured, but I don't think he actually is injured. I just don't think they're playing him. Is that crazy to think? or
I can't tell you if it's crazy to think because I don't know.
I don't think anyone knows.
It's weird though. I don't understand it. I mean, if you're gonna contend, you need him on the team, and then he has to come back at some point to have some sort of like chemistry. Not that they don't have chemistry, but some practice, like post COVID, at least. It's weird. Looking at the game plan, something I hope happens, and what I think the Bears should do, and I'm assuming they're gonna do this, is you plan for Kamara. You say, we're stopping Kamara at all costs. We're going to stop the run game. We're not letting you dish it off in screens. And we're going to make you actually throw the ball downfield to Emmanuel Sanders. If Michael Thomas does come back, Michael Thomas. And I am very interested to see what Drew Brees does this game. I'm assuming Brees goes like 100 yards, like 12 for 25, and like 2 picks. I mean, I guess people might call me like a Drew Brees hater. I don't really think I am. I just think I'm a realist. His arm's shot. What do you think about Brees in 43-degree Chicago weather? And
I think it's going to be a lot of screens to Kamara, a lot of flat, just handoffs, dumps, anything. I mean, it's literally going to be the game plan for the Saints. Just give the ball to Kamara and just hope that he can break an 80-yarder. At least once in the game. Hopefully he goes for like 200 scrimmage yards and like 3 touchdowns. I think it's the only game plan that the Saints can have for this game.
Okay.
And if you're the Bears, I mean, you have to stop Kamara because there's no way the Saints can move the ball if Kamara's not touching it. So.
Okay, so are the Saints just done then? Like, are they like?
The thing is, I believe in the Saints. I don't know why.
But how can you if they're only?
I know. I don't know why I do, but I do. I think like once Thomas comes back, I just think their offense is just way more expanded. Even with Brees just not being as good as he is, because Michael Thomas is the 5-yard slant king. It's just what he does. He gets 5-yard slants and he takes them for 40 yards. But for some reason I believe it. I don't think they're better than the Bucs, but I think they're a top team in the NFC. So I don't know why I think that, but I do.
I'm just gonna say right now I don't. I really don't. I mean, they might make the playoffs just because they're a competent team. They're well coached, and Drew Brees isn't gonna make a lot of stupid mistakes. But I don't think this team wins a playoff game.
Well, I think it depends on who they play first round. Like we were saying earlier, or last week, we were saying that they could play Philly first round. I mean, would you take him against Philly? I mean, it would be in Philadelphia, but
I'm not. I'm taking the home team.
I take New Orleans in that game.
I would take Philly. I know that's stupid, but my Drew Brees hope scale, I'm really low on that scale. I'm near 0.
Yeah, you're really low on that scale. I'm 25.
25.
But I think 25 is good enough, though. I don't know. I don't know what it is about the Saints, but I think this is their last season, so I think I have to put my trust in.
Would they be better off with Winston as the starting quarterback?
I think if he somehow was able to cut his turnovers down by 30%, then probably yes.
I think it needs to be more than 30% because he went
30
30 touchdowns.
I just don't even trust them to cut it down by 30%.
I don't necessarily either. But if I'm the Saints, and let's say you do lose this game and it's in the fashion we think it might happen in, and then that continues for another month or maybe another 3 weeks or 2 weeks, I mean, don't you have to consider just saying, all right, I don't know what it is, Drew Brees, but your arm is not good anymore, and we're going to put Winston in, and if he plays well, he's going to be the starting quarterback for the rest of the season.
Well, I think if they lose 2 or 3 in a row, and it's because of Brees, not because of some crazy play or defense, I think they probably do change. If right now they're 4-2, if they're 4-5, in 3 weeks, I think you almost have to. I mean, how could you not? Because you can't stay with Brees if you're 4-5. You're not going to make the playoffs if you're 4-5 and you stay with Brees. So, I think you have to change at that point.
Yeah, I mean, the Saints could easily lose against the Bears. After this, they go to the Bucs. They could easily lose in Tampa.
Yeah.
And then after that, they play the 49ers. Is it unrealistic to think they could be 4-5?
And even though they play the Falcons the next week, I mean, you could say what you want to say about the Falcons, but they're a competitive game. They're not just a pushover. They're 1-6, but they could easily beat the Saints.
And it's a division game.
Yeah, I mean, every division game's always tough. So.
And I think maybe this is just really stupid and I shouldn't talk about Winston, but I think if you're going to put Winston in, you want to put him in against maybe a team like the Falcons where their defense is just not that great, and it gives Winston confidence if he plays well. Even if it's not 400 yards, 3-4 touchdowns, if he just goes 20 for 25, 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Like that's exactly what you're looking for out of him, and that gives him confidence. And after that, you get the Broncos and you get the Falcons again. So it's not like he has to go against any super tough teams. So like you're setting him up for success, not failure, and that's important. Maybe that's just stupid, and the Saints do stick with Breeze. I'm assuming they do. I'd be very surprised if they didn't, but it'd definitely be interesting to see Winston play this year.
Yeah, and if they go on a losing streak, I think Winston most likely gets in. So,
yeah, I'm curious. I mean, this is for next year and years to come, but I wish I knew what the Saints thought about Winston and if they actually believe in him long term. I would assume no. It just seems like he just is so turnover prone. He played for the Buccaneers, so it's like, what do you kind of expect? But 30 touchdowns, 30 picks. That's like 30 interceptions. How is that even possible?
Yeah.
Like if I played quarterback, I mean, I wouldn't throw 30 touchdowns. I wouldn't even throw probably 30 completions, but
and not even 30 interceptions, but also, I mean, I think he had like 5 or 6 fumbles, I want to say, that were lost, not counting the ones that he just fumbled and they recovered. So, I mean, he had 33 touchdowns and 30 interceptions last year. Getting to our next game, we're going to talk 49ers Seahawks. Drew, do you have any thoughts on Niners Seahawks this week? Big game.
No, I don't have any thoughts. Stupid joke. I mean, it's a division game. I'm more interested in the Seahawks defense and the offense. We know what the Seahawks offense is. We know what Wilson is. We know what Metcalf is. We know what Lockett is. The Seahawks defense is a question mark. If they're going to advance to the Super Bowl, the defense has to play at least like a league average level, and they're going to have to make plays and cause turnovers. They just traded for Carlos Dunlap. We'll see what that does. The Seahawks pass rush has not been good at all. It's been bad. The Seahawks secondary has not been good. That has been bad. Aside from it's all the defense has been bad. They just have to play better. We'll see if the Seahawks make any more additions. I think they definitely should make more additions. I'm not sure how many assets you actually have. We'll get into that potentially later in the podcast. But yeah, the Seahawks defense, to sum it up, really just needs to play better for them to really go far.
Yeah, they got Dunlap like you were saying, but I think the big key for the defense that Jamal Adams has been injured for a couple weeks now. I think he's just a huge part of the defense. He makes so many plays, not just in the secondary, but sacking the quarterback and being able to rush the passer, which is something that they don't do. So I think them getting Dunlap, and then I think he's getting more motivated being on the Seahawks. He's been with the Bengals for almost a decade, if not 10 years now, but he wasn't really playing with them. Obviously, they're going young. And I think with the Seahawks on a winning team, he could be, he's a good player. A couple years ago, he was a top player at his position. And I think that as long as he can give them some value, and then if you get Adams back, it just shores up the defense a little bit more. So, and I think this week's a good week to get their defense going. I mean, the Niners aren't the best offensive team. They rely on the run a lot, and they have a lot of injuries at the running back position. And their one big receiver, obviously you have Debo and Brandon Ayuk at wide receiver position, but Kittle's obviously their main target. And I think if the Seahawks, this would be a great game to have Adams because he could just cover Kittle, honestly, the entire game. But, they really need to focus on Kittle because he's their only, threat down the field, in the middle of the field for big plays for the Niners. So I think
you probably just chip Kittle at the line every single time, no matter what. I don't know if you double him. I guess if you don't have Adams, then you maybe consider it. I think a different part of the Seahawks offense or defense, though, that has been a little bit weird has been Bobby Wagner's play. By no means has he been bad, but he signed a contract and he's getting $18 million per year. I don't think he's earning that $18 million per year. Definitely not. He has not played as well as he has in past years. And if the Seahawks' defense is going to be like almost what the Chiefs' defense was last year, which wasn't great in the regular season, but towards the latter end of the regular season and in the playoffs, it really picked it up and it was able to create havoc and turnovers and get that offense back on the field, Wagner's going to have to play like a borderline defensive player of the year candidate. And Adams is also probably going to have to play at a borderline defensive player of the year candidate, especially if they're not making any more additions. We've definitely seen the Seahawks in some trade deadline rumors for some big time players, but yeah, regardless, they're both gonna have to play better, and the role players on that Seahawks defense are gonna have to at least play a bit more competent for them to really have a chance, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, personally, I don't really see them making like a big addition at the trade deadline. I think Dunlap.
They just don't have any draft capital. Really.
Yeah, they have nothing to trade. So, and really, the only player they like that can make a splash would be Gilmore, but I don't see them getting Stephon Gilmore. So, I think the defense is what it is right now, and you just hope when Adams comes back that you can turn into like a league average defense, which they're just so below average right now. And you hope that. Yeah, like you're saying, like the Chiefs defense. If they could be like the Chiefs defense from last year and turn it up in the postseason, at the end of the regular season going to the postseason.
Then the Seahawks offense can be what the Chiefs offense last year and carry.
Yeah, because the Seahawks offense can carry every single game. They do it anyways, and they're gonna have to do it no matter what. Even if the defense plays elite defense, they're still it's gonna be the offense that wins games. So
it's gonna have to be Wilson. Wilson's gonna have to win.
It's gonna come down to Wilson not making. He cannot be throwing 3 interceptions, and
he can't even really be throwing more.
He can't be throwing
one
interception.
Yeah, he really can't.
Yeah.
No, especially not in the playoffs. Looking at the Niners, we've talked about the Niners. We talked about them last episode, so we'll make this quick. Again, I'm not exactly sure what to think of the Niners season. They're really behind in the playoff race. There's so many teams that are competing. The Super Bowl hangover has really seemed to kind of hit them a little bit harder, not to mention a lot of injuries like Bosa. Jimmy G has definitely not played as well as he did last year. He doesn't seem the same. I don't know if it was a Super Bowl loss. I don't know if it was the Super Bowl hangover. Not that they won it, but it's still a thing even if you don't win it. And it's been a little bit confusing. I guess you don't have Sanders now this year. Deebo Samuel hasn't been healthy the whole year. Kittle's still great, so that's not really a question. Mostert's out, right? I believe he's definitely out. He's on the IR right now.
Yeah, he's out. They have no running backs.
Yeah. So, we'll see. To be honest, the Niners aren't too interesting of a team to me right now. I just think you kind of have to play it out, see what happens. If Garoppolo doesn't play well the rest of the year, then you definitely consider dumping him. The way that contract works is there's a certain deadline. I don't remember the exact day. It's somewhere in the offseason before free agency. But they can cut him and not have to pay much of that contract. Much of the way, I think the Andy Dalton contract was set up that same way on the Bengals one of those years. So that's why those Brady rumors were a thing, was because they could have just cut Garoppolo. Or they could have traded him, obviously, but they could have cut him and just brought Brady in. We'll see how the Garoppolo thing plays out. It's something to keep an eye on for sure. Moving on to maybe not too exciting of a game, but definitely a meaningful game. The Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles, 2 really not good teams, probably top 10 worst in the league right now, but the NFC is so bad that these 2 teams are competing for the division crown. Obviously, the Cowboys have dealt with a lot of injuries. Dak Prescott, Andy Dalton, also injuries on the defense. Zeke has not played well yet, one time. The offensive line is just not very good right now, mostly due to injuries and retirement.
This game is a game that I was looking forward to earlier in the season. Before the season started, I thought this was going to be a huge game. I thought it was going to be 2 teams that would be above 500, which obviously they're not if you look at their records. And I thought it was going to be like whoever won this game was going to win the division. And even though it probably still is that game, again, I don't really have faith in Washington to win the division. They lost 5 straight games after winning against the Eagles in the first week, so I don't really trust that they're going to be able to be consistent enough to win games down the stretch. But I think whoever wins this game, even with how bad the Cowboys have been playing, I think whoever wins this game wins the division. But even that, I don't see the Cowboys.
Well, the division games are super important, more important than the NFC East right now, and that's because these are like the only winnable games for teams. Like, I don't see the Cowboys, Eagles, and the Washington football team winning many out of the division games, just because, this division is really bad, and if you're playing an out-of-division game, it's most likely against a much better team. So these division games are big, not to mention, obviously, these are probably the 2 front runners for the division. So, again, maybe not a super exciting game, but arguably the most meaningful game out of the ones we're going to talk about today. Looking at the Eagles, Carson Wentz arguably played better last week. I don't know, maybe. Still, the team isn't good. The defense isn't very good. I mean, the offense is kind of still having the same problems they've had ever since the Super Bowl year, and maybe even including the Super Bowl year. The wide receiving core is just like not good at all. I don't know. I haven't done too much research on who did they draft again? The guy from TCU.
Jalen Reagor.
I don't know how good he's been, but I'm just gonna assume not very good.
No.
So I mean, yeah, I know there's rumors about Alshon Jeffrey being traded. And this has gone back, even when they made the Super Bowl, their receiving core was never good. Like, they dealt with so many drops. When they used to have Aguilar, he dropped, like, every single ball. I don't understand why they haven't been able to draft receivers. I don't know, but...
I want to go back to the Cowboys for a second. It looks like they're going to start Ben DiNucci at quarterback. It doesn't seem like Andy Dalton's going to be able to start this game.
Did they bring in a backup?
They signed... I know they signed Cooper Rush, who has been on the Cowboys for a couple of years. I think from 2017 to 2019. But I mean, he's not going to start. But I mean, if you have DiNucci starting, you're going to have to rely on Zeke a ton this game. And just the way he's been playing, he's on 6 straight games without 100 yards, which is the longest of his career. I don't know if it's just to start a season or just at any point in the season, but either way, I know it's his longest, 6 games. So they need a big performance from Zeke, and if they don't get that, I mean, there's just no way they win this game. Even with how bad the Eagles are, which they are a bad team, they should have lost last week to the Giants. It's going to be tough for the Cowboys to win this game, and that's not even including how bad the defense is. The defense didn't get better, so...
I mean, I definitely think Carson Wentz could just, like... I mean, he doesn't even have to play super well, but if he just, like, plays, like, competent, like, that just might be the reason they win. Because Carson Wentz just might be by far the best player in that field, even though he's not played, outstanding. If he just plays well in the fourth quarter, it's like a 10-10 game or something dumb like that. Like, Eagles just may take it. It's unfortunate because I think you obviously have a better chance as the Cowboys with Andy Dalton as your starting quarterback. He hasn't played well or even good yet.
But even then, like, the offensive line's so bad. Like, I don't even think Dalton would be that much better. He'd be better just because he is better, but it wouldn't be that much better.
Maybe not. This game, I mean, I don't know if it's going to be interesting to watch, but just like seeing these two bad front runner for the division teams is just so, there's something like interesting about it, and I don't know what it is. I guess it's just like seeing like these two dumpster fire teams right now that like we're supposed to be good. It's just like that's interesting to me. I don't know, but I'm definitely excited for that game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be watching it, obviously, but I mean, am I excited to watch it? No, but it will definitely be interesting. I think it'll be a close game at the end. I don't really see either team being blown out.
I don't know how that even could happen.
I think the only way a blowout happens is if the Eagles can get, like a couple early touchdowns and then just over. There's
like
no way
3 picks. Ben DiNucci just pulls a Nathan Peterman and just throws like 4 pick sixes off the bat. Yeah, basically.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens either.
I wouldn't either. I would not be surprised.
All right, moving on to our last game that we're going to talk about. We have Colts at Lions. This is a pretty interesting game, at least for me. I've been pretty impressed with the Lions so far this season. They're 3-3, and I mean, they're not going to win that division, but if they keep playing like they've been playing, I think they definitely have a chance at the wild card. I don't think they'll get it, but with the way they've been playing, they've looked pretty good. I think DeAndre Swift's been really impressive for the Lions offense, and Kenny Golladay, obviously. I mean, he's one of the most underrated receivers in the league. I think it's just because, he was coming after Calvin Johnson, and then he's kind of been injured a little bit, so people really haven't been looking at him that much. But he's been really good this year. He was coming off an injury, so his numbers may not look that impressive compared to other top guys, but he's been really good this year. And I think a lot of people were thinking that Patricia was probably going to get fired mid-season. He still might. You're right, but I think people thought he could even get fired in the offseason, and he's proving that if people buy into his system, which obviously it's a Belichick system, that's just what it is, and most people aren't gonna buy into that if they're not molded in. And it's his 3rd year as coach, and I think people are starting to buy into the system a little bit more. And I don't know how they're gonna end this season, but I wouldn't be surprised if he stays the coach of the Lions. Especially if they end off on a good note. This game is going to be, I think, a very interesting game, and I think it's going to be
If I was Bob Quinn, I would have fired Patricia last year. And the Lions could have easily been 4-2 this year, which is, kind of crazy to think about, because they probably should have won the opener against the Bears. But they could also be 2-4 because, it was the Lions Falcons game last week was basically like which choking organization chokes harder, and apparently it was the Falcons last week.
Yeah, Falcons have taken over that number 1 spot.
Yeah. The Lions aren't far behind, though. They're just not good enough to choke in like important situations. I don't know. Like I would have fired if I was Bob Quinn. Like I said, I'm firing Dan Quinn. Sorry, I'm firing Matt Patricia. Oh my God, I'm firing Matt Patricia last year in the offseason. I don't know what I would do with Matt Stafford if I could trade him for anything, like anything valuable. I would have done that, and I think he would have been able to. You probably still could if you really tried to. I would have just taken this year, maybe just try to start building like the Dolphins last year, try to get a high pick, but also try to build a winning culture. If that doesn't happen, then you're really bad, and you have a high draft pick for Trevor Lawrence or for Justin Fields. I just don't know what you're doing in this like era here with Patricia and Stafford. Are you going to be able to just draft a bunch of talent and become a Super Bowl contender over the next few years? I don't think so. The Matt Patricia / Bill Belichick system relies on winning as a credential to get people to buy in. And if you don't have that, people will not buy in. We've seen that with the Bill Belichick coaching tree. And Patricia's, I think, probably going to end up being another one of those that he just doesn't end up winning at the start. The coaching job he takes just wasn't one that was worth it, in my opinion. When he took that job, I think Jim Caldwell had just gone like 9-7 or 7-9 or something. The team wasn't very talented, didn't have a lot going for it. I think Josh McDaniels, although he hasn't taken any head coaching jobs, he's arguably done a good job so far, like in his head coach pursuit, by just not taking a job that is set up to fail, like he kind of did for Denver. Not to mention he did draft Tim Tebow, so he kind of did it to himself a little bit. But if Patricia had just stayed as a defensive coordinator for Belichick for maybe a couple more years, a year or two more, and just wait for the perfect opportunity, he would have been able to potentially step into an organization that is ready to win now and has some, validity towards it. So he's not stepping into a loser organization like the Lions. Not having that winning culture, I just think really hurts the Bill Belichick coaching tree, especially because Patricia, more so than a lot of the other coaches, is very, very Belichick. I remember the first week of the first year he coached, he had the backwards hat, and everyone hounded on him for that. And then the next week, he flipped it around, go forward. I mean, it doesn't really mean anything, but I think it just shows to, for some reason, how much Patricia wanted to copy Belichick to be that, like, whatever you think of Belichick, how he acts on the sideline. I don't know what the perfect term is to describe it, but Patricia wanted to be that, and he still wants to be that. And you need winning, and you need it now to supplement that style of coaching.
And talking about the Colts, there's nothing that really excites me when looking at the Colts. They got Phillip Rivers in the offseason. They had Brissett as a starter last year, and I guess they thought Rivers was an upgrade. I'm not exactly sure if he's an upgrade. They're 4-2, so I guess you can't argue with the wins and losses, but I'm just not sure what to think about the Colts. I think they can make the playoffs if they can end, maybe if they can get to 10-6, which, in that division, you play the Texans and Jaguars twice. You would think that should be at least 3 wins, but I'm not sure. They have a good defense. They have a pretty good offensive line, one of the top offensive lines, but T.Y. Hilton's probably been one of the worst receivers this year. He's just not even close to what he used to be.
Yeah, I just think the Colts are just in that like middle of the league where like they're not bad enough to be really bad, but they're nowhere near good enough to actually contend for a Super Bowl. Could they potentially get that last wild card spot or something? Sure, maybe they get it, maybe they don't. But you're not going anywhere with this team. Even if you get hot, you're not beating the Chiefs. You know, like even if everything works out super well, you're not beating the Chiefs. I'm sorry, you don't have the talent. So like, what are you doing? Do you try to sell on a piece like T.Y. Hilton if anybody even wants to trade for him? I don't think anybody wants him.
Yeah.
But I just don't see the point of this year, and I don't see the direction. Like with a team like the Dolphins last year, I saw a direction. With a lot of, good organizations, I see direction. And the Colts are a good organization. Jim Irsay has probably had his troubles as an owner. But overall, they've kept the winning culture with Manning and then with Luck. And, that one year that they did tank for Luck, you saw the clear direction and you saw where they were going with it. And this year, I just don't. They were like they signed Phillip Rivers, like hanging on for dear life to stay as a relevant team. I didn't think it was going to work out. I don't think it has worked out. They haven't looked like a top 10 team, not even close, not close to a Super Bowl contender. So, like, what's the point?
I think they're just in the middle. I think they're in that phase where they think they could still contend, but like you said, they're not bad enough. Like, they still have good players, so they're not bad enough to tank.
If they think they can seriously contend for a Super Bowl, if the GM legitimately thinks that, fire him right now, because they're not.
Yeah, I don't think they think that.
But maybe a team, they want to have a good enough team so they sell tickets, but you're not selling tickets this year. So what's the point? I don't understand. You're not really trading Rivers. I don't know who you would want to trade, but I'm just saying it doesn't make sense.
I think after this year is when they go into the rebuild.
Probably.
Because, they're obviously going to see that. I think Rivers signed a 2-year contract, but he's not going to...
Yeah.
Even if they make the playoffs this year, which, again, it's a long shot, but if they do, I don't even really see Rivers even being the quarterback next year.
I don't either.
So, I think the rebuild starts next year, and...
But wouldn't have this been the year to start the rebuild with the whole COVID, not selling tickets?
I just think that they thought they could still be relevant, I guess.
No, that's
the only thought. Obviously, I think they knew, the only way they could be a good NFL team and have a chance for Super Bowls if they had, a top 10 quarterback, which they just don't have. So, even then, they still probably wouldn't.
They wouldn't.
So,
unless they had, the best quarterback in the league.
I would say, unless you had, Mahomes, I would say Mahomes is probably the only person...
Wilson.
That you could put. Oh yeah, Wilson too. Yeah. I would say Mahomes and Wilson are the only two people who could be the Colts quarterback and they could be Super Bowl contender.
Yeah. So overall, I'm not even suggesting a plan. I guess my plan would have been to tank this year, but for the future, moving on, I don't really have a plan for the Colts. But I just wanted to say what are you doing and what do you think you're doing? Anyways, gonna take a quick minute ad break here. Be back in a few seconds. Back from the ad break, going to get into some trade deadline talk. Essentially, what I'm going to do is I will list off some trades, and you just tell me your thoughts, whatever it happens to be. First one we've already talked about a little bit, Stephon Gilmore, but not to the Seahawks. This trade has him going to the Raiders. By the way, before I get into this, the trades that we found, they were from this CBS Sports article. It was a one trade. Each team should make 32 different scenarios. Anyways, Stephon Gilmore to the Raiders for a 2021 first and a 2022 fourth.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about this trade. I think...
For which teams? Both teams? Or
I would say if I'm the Raiders. I just don't see... I think if you're the Patriots, yeah, you do that trade all day. You get a first and a fourth for a guy. You won Defensive Player of the Year, but he's not going to be a part of your future. Because obviously their futures, it could have been a couple years to the Patriots, but for the Raiders, I don't think you're good enough. I don't think you're at the level where if you add a top flight cornerback like Stephon, that it's gonna elevate you to the point where you're a top team in the league. They're not even a top team in the AFC, so I wouldn't understand if they were. If they make the trade, they make the trade, but I wouldn't understand it for them, especially when they probably need that 2021 first round pick.
Next draft is 2021.
Yeah, and I'm saying they're probably going to need that pick.
What's the record going to be? Probably 8-8, 9-7. So you're looking at what?
Yeah, but maybe you want to trade up. If Carr's not the guy, you may want to trade up. I don't think you get you're not going to get Lawrence, but you can maybe get Fields if you want him.
I'd be very.
If they want him, depends on what Gruden wants.
We're gonna have to give up so much because 9-7 is, we'll call it the 17th pick. Fields is probably gonna go 2.
I don't know if he goes 2. I don't
Then he'll
think
go
Fields goes 2.
then he's top 5 at least. I think he's top 2 or 3. We see how these drafts play out every year, and Fields is more coveted than like somebody like Blake Bortles who went 3 one year.
Well, I mean, he's definitely better than Blake Bortles is, but
No, but that's what I'm saying. Is like
yeah, but
quarterbacks
I mean,
typically rise as the draft comes closer. I think it's going to be tough to trade up from 16 to, we'll call it 5. That's very tough. You're going to have to give up a lot for that. I'm not saying that I do this deal from the Raiders. I don't. That first round pick is still valuable, regardless of where it is. Again, Stephon Gilmore's, he's kind of like you trade him if you want to win now and you want to win in the next few years. I think if you're the Raiders, you are you're trying to win now, but your game plan is to become Super Bowl contenders in 2 or 3 years. So again, if I'm the Patriots, I do this trade if this is the best I can get. Obviously, if I can get something better, I do it.
So we're both no for the Raiders.
We're both no for the Raiders, yes for the Patriots.
Yeah.
If this is the best I can get as Bill Belichick, I'm doing it. I'll take that 2021 firsts.
Definitely.
You can either maybe get a quarterback there, maybe not Fields. Maybe you decide to use a bunch of firsts to trade up for Fields if you really like him. But regardless of what you use that first round pick on, it's still really valuable, the 16th, 17th pick in the league.
You also got to make the right pick, though.
Yeah, but I guess
just because the Patriots really haven't made the best first round picks recently.
Guess the last Pro Bowler they drafted. Do you know this?
First round.
Hightower. Jamie Collins.
Yeah.
2013.
Sam, yeah.
Actually, sorry, that's not even first round.
He's not even
that's
first round pick. Hightower was.
It's not even. Sorry, I shouldn't even have said first round picks. Just in general, that's the last Pro Bowler.
That's 7 years.
Yeah, actually, I don't know if it was Hightower as the last first rounder because who was drafted earlier, Jones or Hightower? They were both drafted, I think, back to back, or they were like 2 or 3 picks.
I think
apart.
Hightower was 2012, if I'm not mistaken.
It was Jones and Hightower were 2012. I'm saying like which one was drafted later. But they were like 3 picks apart, so I guess like either answer would be valid. But I mean, just technically.
Yeah, it's been a long time. That's really
it's
what
been
it
a
comes
long
down
time.
to.
I could probably list off like all their horrible first round and other picks, but I won't bore anybody with that. Moving on, a different trade here. Lions would be trading Marvin Jones to the Ravens for a 2021 6th and a 2022 7th.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't if you're the Ravens. I mean, Marvin Jones he's a pretty good wide receiver. He's been kind of phased out in the Lions offense this year. I'm not sure why, but if you're the Ravens, I mean, they need someone on the outside. Like they have like Hollywood, and they have Mark Andrews. And they really rely on the running game, obviously, but they really don't have a physical receiver like that. I mean, they just signed Des Bryant, but I mean, I don't think anyone thinks
to
that
the practice squad, right?
Yeah, which means he still has to get elevated to the main team. Which I mean, he probably would, but I mean, he's not gonna make an impact for you. So same way Marvin Jones could. So I wouldn't see if you're the Ravens. I wouldn't see why you wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I agree. If you're the Ravens and you like Marvin Jones, do it all day, every day, 6th and a 7th, like. Those players, like, statistically aren't even likely to make the team, really. If you're the Lions, I guess if you're just, like, done with Marvin Jones, I mean, I guess why not? But to me, I mean, ideally I would just get Marvin Jones more involved because, at your best, he's a part of that offense probably. And, if you did want to trade him down the road, not this trade deadline, but maybe, down the road. I guess let me look up his contract.
Well, one thing I will say is that for the Ravens, like they're in win now. I mean, like obviously, like if Lamar stays healthy and he is the real deal quarterback, then like you're in win now mode phase. So I don't know why you wouldn't trade for a wide receiver who can at least provide offense for you, where you really haven't had a lot of production on the outside.
Yeah. Okay. So Marvin Jones is an unrestricted free agent after this year, so I guess you wouldn't trade him down the road, but I still think you try to make it work out. Maybe you re-sign him after this year if it does work out, if you can get him re-involved in the offense, and then you trade him again, not again, but you trade him down the road so you can get more than a 6th and a 7th. Because right now I think all you'd about get would probably be like a 5th and a 6th, maybe a 6th and a 7th, maybe a 4th, but I'd be very surprised.
No, you'd get a 6th or a 7th. I mean, that's all you'd get.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess if you're just done with Marvin Jones as the Lions, you do it. I don't know. For me, my answer on the Lions is like whatever they think. I don't. I think you could justify yes, you could justify no. As the Ravens, I mean, it's probably a yes no matter what. You've seen what he's capable of the past few years. I think you just take that chance. You need someone to step up, or you need an acquisition in that receiving core for you to become more elite in the passing game or elite in general. Moving on to another wide receiver, former teammate actually in Cincinnati, AJ Green to the Titans for a 2021 fourth and a 2022 seventh.
If you're the Titans, you do this. They need a wide receiver like AJ Green. Like, he's not the same as he used to be a couple years ago. Obviously, he's been injured and he's a little older now, but he's an experienced wide receiver, and if he can stay healthy and it could be a part of the offense, which in Cincinnati is very hit or miss right now, but if he could be a part of that offense, obviously you're not going to have to rely on him. You have Henry, so it's only in big-time situations when you need to make throws that you're going to have to go to A.J. Green. But honestly, if I'm the Bengals, he's only signed for this year. He's a free agent after next year. I really don't see the Bengals bringing him back. But I mean, if you can get a fourth-round pick for A.J. Green, then I'd do it. But honestly, I don't even know if they'd get a fourth-round pick for him.
I don't know if they do either.
So I think if you don't get a fourth-round pick for him, I think you probably just keep him. I don't really see a reason to trade him if you don't get a fourth-round pick.
Yeah, I don't disagree. If you get a fourth, I would do that as the Bengals. Looking at the Titans, I'm not doing it. I don't like A.J. Green. I think he's super soft. He can run the deep route. Can't run much else, in my opinion. He's very soft. Watching him, I've never watched a lot of Bengals games, but from the ones I have watched, AJ Green he's soft, and I just don't think he's very good across the middle. And I guess the Titans, AJ Green's not horrible for that. Maybe.
But why wouldn't you trade for him to the Titans?
I don't think he's going to work out. That's why. I don't think he's going to. He's injury prone. I'll just keep my fourth and my seventh.
Well, if they don't have to give up a fourth for him, then you do it,
if you
right?
could give up like a sixth round pick, sure.
But you would do it if you were the Titans if you didn't have to give up a fourth?
Yeah, sure. Why not? If not, then I just, whatever. He just sits on the bench for the rest of the year and you just let him go as a free agent. But I'm not giving up anything a fourth or more. I just don't necessarily see the point. I guess I see the point. I just don't agree with the outcome of the trade. I don't think it's going to benefit the Titans.
I agree with not giving up the fourth, but if I'm the Titans, I think, again, not giving up the fourth, I think you make that trade. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, sure. Moving on to our last trade here, Will Fuller of the Texans going to the Packers for a 2021 third and a 2022 conditional fifth-round pick.
If you're the Packers, I would say maybe not a third-round pick. I just don't know if Will Fuller, he's just never been healthy enough for me to give up a third-round pick for him. I
think like a lot for Will Fuller. Right?
Yeah, I don't think he's that good of a wide receiver for a third-round pick. I think a third-round pick for a wide receiver. I mean, didn't Hopkins get traded for like a fourth-round pick? No, it was a second.
Hopkins was
second. It was like a second and a fourth.
Second, David Johnson, fourth, I want to
say.
I
mean, like, David Johnson's in that trade, but also the Texans valued him in that trade, so there's difference. But, I mean, if Will Fuller's getting a third-round pick, I mean, for the Texans, yeah, if someone offers you a third-round pick for Will Fuller, I think you definitely do that. But,
I'll do that every day.
Yeah, but I think that he's a great fit for the Packers, but just not for that price.
Yeah, he's an unrestricted free agent after this year. I'm not paying Will Fuller.
No, you can't give up a third-round pick for 1 year.
A third and a 2022 conditional fifth. I'm sure that conditional fifth would depend on if you re-sign him or if he goes off this year. No, I'm not doing that. I would do it for a fourth and that's it. That would be the most, and that'd be the most I go on that.
Yeah, a fourth would be the most.
And I have to know that. Obviously, Will Fuller has to pass the physical, I guess, to get traded. But I need to make sure Fuller's healthy, and he better not get injured. Because if he gets injured, I guess, I don't know.
You could probably get a conditional back or something like that.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
But he'd be a great fit with the Packers. That's probably exactly what they need.
They need another receiver.
And I guess stretch the field.
I don't know. I guess this is one of your last years competing with Rodgers. Maybe you, even though it's a little bit of overpayment, if the if the Texans are like third or nothing, or we're done. I don't know. I'm trying to talk myself into disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
Maybe you just say, you know what, this is maybe the last couple years of Rodgers. This third is probably not going to be very valuable. It's going to be a low third. Let's just, you know what, you only live once. Like, let's just do this trade and let's try to win this year. I personally am not doing that. Again, we've talked about how I don't like him. But maybe if you're the Packers, maybe you just consider it. If he's your only option, like if it's him or you're not making a trade for a wide receiver,
you might have to. I think if they talk themselves into, like, he can make a difference that can get us to the Super Bowl, then, I mean, you have to at that point. But in my mind, he's not, at least for that price. But, again, it's really whatever Rodgers thinks. If Rodgers thinks that he can make a difference, then they're going to do it.
Yeah,
so.
But, I mean, could Will Fuller not be the difference between them getting to a Super Bowl or not? I think it could be.
I think it could be, too. Because him playing off Adams and with Jones. I mean, Jones isn't healthy right now, but when he gets healthy again, I mean, that's a scary trio. If they're all healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I really think that you need another wide receiver as the Packers. And I don't love Fuller. I don't really like him at all. Injury prone. He's one of those players that still seems kind of soft. Runs a deep route well, doesn't run much else well, in my opinion. But if he's your only option, I don't think you're getting into a Super Bowl if you don't make a move for a wide receiver this trade deadline, or at least in my opinion, as looking at the Packers. So maybe you just have to. Maybe you have no choice.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to if they have no choice or not. That's really what it's going to come down to for them.
Like, would you rather have Fuller for a third and a 2022 conditional fifth, or like Marvin Jones for? Well, I guess maybe the Lions don't trade Marvin Jones in the division.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't do that.
So let's just take AJ Green. Would you rather have Fuller for a third, and we'll just call it a third? Would you rather have Fuller for a third or Green for a fourth?
I'd rather have Fuller. I don't think AJ Green's the receiver that the Packers need.
Yeah, you're probably right. I think I'd take Fuller for a third too.
And that's an overpay for Fuller, but I think it's better than a fourth for AJ Green.
Probably. Yeah. I mean, there's not many great receivers on the market this year, which is.
There's really never. When are there really great receivers on the market?
Compared to last year, well, I guess maybe not. I don't know. But Emmanuel Sanders is better than any of these people.
Yeah, that was a surprise from last year that he was, so available.
I thought he was going to.
I mean, the 49ers stole him. I mean.
They stole him. I wish the Pats traded for him.
The Pats.
They traded arguably more for Sanu, who is like literally so bad.
Tired.
Yeah, he's horrible. Such a waste. Moving on to the Week 8 NFL picks. Same games we talked about earlier this podcast. By the way, we'll have more trade deadline talks on Wednesday once the trade deadline has concluded, what trades happened, what didn't. First game, Pats-Bills. Bills are -4. Who are you taking?
I'm going to take Bills to cover. Again, we talked about it earlier. I just don't see the Pats moving the ball against the Bills. And with Bills being home, I think that's just a huge advantage for the Bills. So I'm going to take Bills -4.
I'm going to take the Patriots. I think it just comes down to the Patriots are much more desperate right now. The Patriots typically don't lose this many games in a row. So I'm at some point I have to think they rebound. I'll take the 4 points. I don't know that the Patriots win, but they better try hard, and it better be a close game. And if it's not, I mean, they're done. Next game, Steelers-Ravens. Baltimore is -4.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why they're -4. I mean, home field advantage has something to do with that, but I think the Steelers are the better team, and I think the Steelers can cover -4. And I think the Steelers honestly win the game. So
I agree here. I'm also going to take the Steelers. I don't know that I like the Steelers more than the Ravens overall. I'm not a huge Lamar fan, but I like John Harbaugh more than I like Tomlin. I don't necessarily know why. I think I just respect Harbaugh more as a Patriots fan because Harbaugh has been able to go into Gillette and not be scared. Tomlin has done the complete opposite. But I'll take the Steelers here. I think the Steelers win this game. Even if they don't, I get 4 points. I'll take that. Saints-Bears, New Orleans is -4.5. I'm going to actually
I'm gonna take the Bears. Again, it's in Chicago, cold weather game. Breeze does not play well in the cold. Uh, I just I don't know if the Bears are gonna win the game, but I think they're gonna cover, and it's gonna be a very close game.
I agree. I'm taking the Bears here. I get 4.5 points. Bears are at home here. It's going to be a cold game. It's going to be a low-scoring game, which means that 4.5 points means more. I think that's how math works. So I'll take the Bears. Again, I don't know that they necessarily win. I think I'd pick them to win. But I'll take the 4.5 points, and we'll see what happens. Niners Seahawks. Seahawks favored by 3.
This is gonna be a close game. I think I'm not even really sure where to go, honestly, on this one. I think I'm gonna go Seahawks. I think their offense is better than the Niners' offense, and I think they're just gonna be able to put up points. And you just hope the Seahawks defense can hold the Niners to just limit them to some capacity, and you hope the Seahawks can just go crazy offensively. So I'm gonna take Seahawks -3.
I'm taking the Seahawks too. I haven't been a big Niners fan this year, as we talked about earlier. Not that it's going to be a close game still, but I do think the Seahawks feel a little bit of pressure from that loss last week. I think they feel a little bit of pressure in that division race against the Cardinals. If you lose this week and the Cardinals win, that's not a great place to be in. Definitely not a great place to be in. So I'm going to take the Seahawks to win and cover. I think Wilson has a rebound day. I think he goes for a few hundred yards, few touchdowns. I think Garoppolo might be able to keep up a little bit, but I think towards the end of the game, the Seahawks do kind of pull away, and I expect the Seahawks to probably win by about 10 points. Maybe not in blowout fashion, but a solid 10-point game. Last game, Cowboys-Eagles. Philadelphia is -8.
Yeah, Philadelphia being -8. I almost feel like that's too high.
Way too much. Too much.
I just don't even. I know they're home, and the Cowboys have been struggling, but it's not like the Eagles have been much better than the Cowboys have. I mean, they should have lost to the Giants. I mean, Eagles could have lost a lot of games this year.
They could literally be winless right now.
They could be, honestly. And you can say the same about the Cowboys also, but
yeah,
I think if Dalton's starting a quarterback, I would say Cowboys. But if DiNucci's going to start, I just don't see how. Even though it's so high, I almost feel like the Eagles probably win by 10 points. I just don't see Cowboys covering that 8. I don't feel confident in it. But I just don't see
torn on this game. It's a difficult game to pick. Yeah, DiNucci is an unknown, and he's 90% going to be bad. I'm very sure he will be horrible. But 8 points is a lot because both of these offenses aren't good. I guess both of these defenses aren't good either. But both of these offenses are not good, and they both have basically the same record this year. The Eagles have a slightly better record because of the tie, but yeah, I'm going to take the Cowboys here. I don't think they win the game. I think the Eagles win. I think Wentz does clutch up in the fourth quarter just like he did against the Giants. But 8 points seems like a lot, doesn't it?
It is a lot.
It seems like a lot. So I'll take the Cowboys there.
And just to throw one more in there, there's a little special one. Jets, Chiefs. Chiefs are -19.5. Do you think Jets cover?
Oh, that's so difficult. That's really difficult.
It's huge. 19.5. I mean, we know why it's huge, but I mean, it's huge.
Who are you taking? Who are you taking for that?
Man, I'm gonna take the Jets. I'm gonna go with it. I'm gonna take Jets.
19.5. I'm taking the Chiefs. I mean, maybe it's just because you took the Jets, but I think we've seen the favorites kind of come out on top for the most part this year. I'll take the Chiefs on that one. I'll take the Chiefs. They just had a blowout win last week. I think they feel good about themselves, and I think they come out here and they destroy this Jets team and just make Adam Gase feel bad about himself.
That's why I think the Jets are going to cover. So I think they're going to prove that 19.5 is too high, and they're going to cover. They're going to lose, but they'll cover.
I mean, so in a world that the Jets cover, how do you think that's even possible? Not that it isn't impossible, but what is your scenario for them?
I think the Chiefs put up 21 in the first quarter and a half, and then they just slow down. They probably end with 30 or something. They probably end with low 30s, and the Jets can somehow get to 13 or 10.
Yeah.
The Jets have to get to 10 points and hope that the Chiefs score 29 points or something. It's gonna be something like that.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah, I could definitely see that. I'll take the Chiefs though. All right, well, that's it for this episode. Thanks for tuning in if you stayed till the end. Trade deadline talk next episode. I think that's about it.
Yeah, I think we're going to be mostly talking trade deadline next week. We're going to have a recap of week 8 also, but it's probably going to be mostly NFL next week. But we will be getting into basketball very soon, as they're starting only in a couple months. So that will be starting up in a couple weeks' time.
Draft talk, going to be big. I'm actually really excited for this year's draft. We'll talk about it later. Excited for the free agency too. It's not a big free agency, but definitely excited. Anyways, we'll be back Wednesday at 6 p.m. See you.